All right, today we're going to dive into something pretty fascinating: traditional Chinese medicine. It's this ancient system that's all built around one single powerful idea: the body's harmony.
Okay, so you've probably seen some of this stuff before, right? Acupuncture needles, those, distinct circular marks from cupping. Maybe you've even heard friends talk about herbal medicine. These are the things we see when we think of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. But what's really going on here?
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Are these just a random collection of old folk remedies, or is there something bigger connecting them all? Is this a real, coherent medical system with its own logic? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out.
To really get a handle on this system, we've got to go back in time. And I mean way back. We are talking about a medical practice that's been built up over 3,000 years. So yeah, this is definitely not some new age fad. It's a tradition with incredibly deep roots in both philosophy and medicine.
A really huge turning point comes from one of its core texts, the Emperor Huang's private canon. What's so important about it? Well, it was a major philosophical leap. It basically said, hey, getting sick isn't about angry spirits or bad magic. Instead, it laid out a framework based on nature, trying to explain the real relationship between our bodies and the world around us. So, what is this framework? Well, think of it like this. At its very core, there are a few big philosophical ideas that are basically the operating system for everything in TCM.
First up, and you've absolutely seen this one before, is yin and yang. The idea here is that everything, and I mean everything, in the universe has two sides that complete each other. It's not about good versus evil. It's more like cold and hot, dark and light, or feminine and masculine. You literally can't have one with the other. They're in a constant dynamic dance.
Okay, so if yin and yang is the first layer, the next one builds right on top of it. It's called the 5 elements theory. And this framework suggests that everything, from the seasons outside to your emotions inside, can be grouped into one of 5 categories: wood, fire, earth, metal, or water.
But here's the thing, these elements aren't just sitting there, they're constantly interacting. You've got a generating cycle, which is like a creation cycle. Wood feeds fire, right? And fire burns to create earth, as ash. Makes sense. Then you have the overcoming cycle, which is all about control. Water puts out fire. Fire melts metal. See? This dynamic balance is absolutely key to the entire system. So we've got these big, kind of cosmic ideas, yin and yang, the 5 elements. But what does any of that have to do with your health? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because this entire philosophy gets mapped directly onto the human body. Now, this next part is super important to get. When a TCM practitioner talks about, say, your liver, they aren't just talking about the physical organ you'd find in an anatomy book. They're talking about a whole center of function, a system that's in charge of specific activities all over your body. And here it is. This is the big aha moment where it all clicks together. Those 5 elements we talked about, they get mapped directly onto these functional organ systems. So the fire element is connected to the heart's job. Wood is connected to the liver's job. Water is connected to the kidney's job. And just like that, that giant philosophical map is now laid right over the human body. So if you have all these functional centers, how do they talk to each other? Well, that's where qi and meridians come in. Qi is basically your vital energy, your life force, and it doesn't just float around randomly. It flows through the body in these invisible channels called meridians. Think of the meridians as a massive highway system, and qi is the traffic that's constantly moving, connecting all the different organs and powering everything they do. So let's put it all together. What is health in TCM? It's actually super simple. Health is harmony. That's it. It means your yin and yang are balanced, the 5 elements are playing nicely together, and your qi is flowing smoothly. And disease, it's not seen as some outside invader like a virus. It's seen as disharmony, a disruption to that internal balance. Okay, so if being sick is just being out of harmony, how on earth does a practitioner figure out what's wrong? What exactly is out of whack? This is where the detective work begins. The whole art of diagnosis is about finding a specific pattern of disharmony. One of their main tools, believe it or not, is looking at your tongue. They see the tongue as a map of the body, with different areas corresponding to different organ systems. A practitioner will look at everything, the color, the shape, the coating, to get clues about what's happening inside, Like a really pale tongue might signal some kind of deficiency. A deep red tongue could mean there's too much heat in the system. And the other huge diagnostic tool is the pulse, and this is so much more than just counting your heart rate. A practitioner will feel your pulse in 3 different spots on each wrist, and they'll press down at 3 different depths. They're feeling for these really subtle qualities. For example, a slippery pulse might feel like little pearls rolling around, or a wiry pulse feels taut like a guitar string. Each of these subtle feelings gives them clues about your qi. So, once they've looked at the tongue and felt the pulse and gathered all the clues, they can identify a specific pattern of disharmony. And from there, the goal of the treatment is actually pretty straightforward: restore the body's natural harmony. All right, let's walk through a real example to see how this works. Let's say after a diagnosis, a practitioner identifies a pattern they call upflaming liver fire. That's a very specific kind of imbalance. So what does that even mean? Well, the patient might come in complaining about headaches, maybe their face gets flushed easily, and they've been feeling super irritable. The practitioner then looks for the signs. They see a red tongue with a dry yellow coating. They feel the pulse, and it's that string-like or wiry quality. All of these clues point them to that one specific pattern. So how do you fix it? The practitioner goes right back to the 5 elements. Remember how water controls fire in that overcoming cycle? Well, the treatment is a direct application of that exact logic. They'll use specific herbs or acupuncture points associated with the water element to help control the excess fire of the liver and bring the system back into balance. Now, you might be wondering, what does modern science say about all this? Well, researchers are definitely still exploring how these treatments work. With acupuncture, for instance, the U.S. National Institutes of Health says it may help manage certain kinds of pain. And they say it's generally safe when it's done by a well-trained practitioner. The theories are that maybe it helps release endorphins or affects our nerve cells, but honestly, the complete picture is still being pieced together. When you boil it all down, TCM is just a fundamentally different lens for looking at the human body. As you can see here, where Western medicine might pull out a stethoscope and focus on numbers, your heart rate, your temperature, TCM is focused on qualitative signs. It's about observing the subtleties of the tongue and the complex nature of the wrinkles to get a picture of how the body is functioning as a whole. And all of this leaves us with a really interesting question to think about. We've seen how TCM isn't just a random collection of practices, but a complete logical system built around harmony and balance. So the question for you is how? Might learning about these completely different ways of understanding the body, whether they're ancient or modern, change how we think about our own health and wellness?